Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be discussing various forensic evidence that was revealed in this case of the Van Breda murders in the last week or so. I'm not going to be drawing any conclusions. The only information I'm going to be doing is providing what has already been mentioned. Alright, on your screen right now you see a photograph of Teresa van Breda. What I'd like you to do is take note of her hair, long, straight, and approximately the length of her hair. Another photograph of Teresa van Breda. Another photograph of Teresa van Breda. Right, here's a photograph of Marli Van Breda. I'd like you to take note of her hair, the length. Please also note that Marli's hair was treated and probably dyed. Another photograph of Marli Van Breda. Notice the length of her hair, whether it's straight or slightly wavy, whether it's been dyed. In the forensic report of Marli Van Breda, it was revealed that there's a photograph of her hand showing, and I'll repeat what it says. Hair starts between the middle and ring finger, and it curls around her forefinger, eventually going across her palm. In his report, Stewart says the length of the hair in the exhibit is approximately 200 millimeters and longer. Also mentioned was that the hair was treated and it could have been dyed. So the hair that was found in Marli Van Breda's hand was approximately 20 centimeters or slightly longer, and it had been treated. Please note the length of Marli Van Breda's hair. Another photograph, note the length of her hair. A photograph of Teresa van Breda, note the length of her hair. Another photograph of Teresa van Breda, note the length of her hair. Long, straight, approximately 20 centimeters long, 200 millimeters or slightly longer. So just to repeat, the hair that was found in Marli Van Breda's hand was that it was straight and blonde. The length of the hair is approximately 200 millimeters long or 20 centimeters and longer. This hair was found in Marli's hand between the middle and ring finger, curled across her forefinger, eventually going across her palm. So the hair that was found in Marli Van Breda's hand was long and straight, approximately 200 millimeters long, maybe slightly longer. What you're now looking at is a view from the parents' bedroom that Teresa and Martin shared, looking out across the passageway. In the distance, you'll see a door where that letter A is. I want you to pay attention to that door there. That's a door to a bedroom. If you were looking outside the parents' bedroom, looking towards their door, that's what you would be seeing. There's the balcony railing. So in other words, if you were standing in that doorway, looking down the passage, you would see the following. That's what you would be looking at. A door to a bedroom. What's also important to note is look on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. You'll see a stairwell. That's the beginning of the stairwell that leads to the ground floor. In other words, an escape route for somebody who's trying to run away from danger that's on the top floor. On the 27th of January 2015, at approximately 4 o'clock in the morning, Teresa van Breda must have left her bedroom with the commotion that was carrying on in the other bedroom and the noise, and gone to investigate. That door that you see in the background, that door is extremely close to where the stairwell begins. In that bedroom, in the foreground, in the background, that is where the murders took place. of Martin and Rudy. According to forensic reports, the first person to be murdered was most likely Martin. Martin had no defensive wounds. In other words, the attack on Martin seemed as though it was a surprise. The second person to be attacked was Marli Van Breda. Both attacks happened inside that bedroom in the background. If Teresa van Breda then left her bedroom to go and investigate what was going on, and she saw some of the carnage, her instinct probably would have been to make an escape. I've drawn a stick figure of Teresa van Breda, and in that angle there, she would be looking at the stairwell. In other words, she would most likely be standing out of your screen to the left, looking down where the steps, where you see the railing on your bottom left-hand side, looking down those steps. So that's the direction that she would be looking. The reason why I believe that she would be looking in that direction is because she would be looking to find a place of safety, in other words, trying to escape. Our description of Teresa's injuries by the forensic pathologist. With Teresa, she faced the assailant and also was aware of the infliction of the trauma. In other words, she knew what was coming her way. Instinctively, also raising her right hand, resulting in a wound to her thumb. She most likely fell forward on her face with abrasions on nose bridge and also more to the left side where she sustained contusions. The first wound was a chop wound, large laceration, blunt force characteristic. This wound split into two. It's 100 millimeters by 15 millimeters and 110 millimeters by 20 millimeters. It extended on the right temporal area to the central scalp area. In other words, Teresa was looking down the stairwell at that direction there, it appears. She was then struck with that red mark that I've drawn on the skull. That then split into two. So it started in the right temporal area and split into two over the central skull. This will give you a good idea of where she was struck with the axe, and I've drawn in a picture of her brain underneath her skull.